Brexit adds 8 million to UK sanctions cost, 300% increase in personnel, yet only one Russian has been so far sanctioned. What? I'm going to read into this more from Byline Times, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from Byline Times with the headline that Brexit added £8 million to the UK sanctions costs, 300% increase in personnel, and yet only one Russian so far has been sanctioned. Iain Overton finds the financial strain on the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office is a direct result of the UK's departure from the European Union. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. Oh, you didn't think, that the cost of Brexit, wasn't going away on other things as well, guys. Oh, no. There's more costs to Brexit. And you still want to say Brexit was a good idea. Oh, dear. So what's this about, Regan? So this story from Byline Times we're going to read to you too. It's about how much money that we have had to pour into the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office as a direct result of leaving the European Union. Basically, we don't have the same sanctions that we had, the same system that we had before, because as we'll read into in a moment, the UK had to set up its own sanctions system because we were part of an EU one. When we were part of the European Union, and because we left the EU, guess what? We had to set up our own one. Guess where that money came from? That's right, taxpayers' money. Yeah, but sovereignty and all that, but that had to take priority. And what's even worse is that not only has it cost so much, as it says there, only one Russian so far sanctioned. So what's been going on? Well, let's have a read into this, you guys. So Brexit and the invasion of Ukraine have led to a substantial increase in the cost and complexities of managing UK sanctions. With the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, that's the FCDO, faced with a surge in staffing, Byline Times has learned. So a Freedom of Information request by Byline Times revealed that the number of FCDO staff dedicated to global sanction enforcement have risen by over 300% in the last 3 years, pushing annual payroll costs to around £8 million. Yep, and that's what we are paying for, guys. This financial strain is a direct result of the UK's departure from the European Union, which has forced the country to shift from a centralised EU sanctions framework to an independent regime managed entirely from London. It is also a consequence of a rise in sanctions against Russians following President Putin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. So not only did we have this burden of leaving the European Union that has cost us an arm and a goddamn leg, and we have gone from being a centralised EU sanctions framework. So not only have we had to shift that all entirely to be in London, but, you guys are going to scream, but sovereignty, yay. Not only that, we also had the added impact of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine as also an added bonus to that. But we can't use that as excuse because everyone's has had the global effect. But clearly, just from this alone, before we've even read into the dive deep, it's already costing us money. But Regan, it's actually a good thing that we left the European Union because you see, we've created more jobs in doing so. Oh, yes, but who's paying for that? We are. Just saying. The rising cost of independence. You remember, this is what you want, your sovereignty, Before Brexit, the UK was part of a shared EU sanctions framework, which spread the operational and financial burdens across all EU members. And in contrast, since leaving the EU in January 2020, the UK had established its own independent sanctions regime. And according to a Freedom of Information request, the FCDO has had to expand its sanctions team from a modest 20 to 29 staff in 2021 to an estimated 110 to 120 by mid-2024, a 300% increase in personnel. Oh, what caused that? I just wonder what could possibly have caused such an increase. If you haven't clocked it already, I think you already know. Prior to Brexit, sanction works in the FCDO was not handled by a dedicated team, as the FCDO confirmed. Our work on sanctions in 2016 would have been split between a number of different staff and teams. The Sanctions and Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2018, however, changed all this. The Act provided the statutory framework for the UK's new independent sanctions system, covering policy formulation, enforcement and measures against individuals, companies and states, and meant many more Whitehall bureaucrats had to be thrown at the issue. It has also led to a rise in lucrative work for some British lawyers, as Michael O'Kane, a senior partner at Peters & Peters, explained in a recent German legal podcast. The white-collar crime space has become a little occupied now by issues relating to sanctions. He lists clients from his London firm from a range of human rights concerns countries such as Egypt, Libya, Syria, Zimbabwe, Belarus, Myanmar, and most recently, many from Russia. It is understood that in 2023, Peters & Peters netted about £750,000 profit from such sanctions works. It's a good time if you're a lawyer. The increased sanction-related costs coincide with the broader financial pressures of the FCDO. In a recent letter to Sir Philip Barden, the Permanent Under-Secretary of State for the FCDO, to the House of Commons Public Accounts Committee, he outlined the damaging impact on relationship with partner governments and other donors and the overall damage to the FCDO's reputation as a reliable donor due to significant government budget cuts. I wonder who cut the budget. Financial constraints have also led the FCDO to sell off key diplomatic assets, such as the sale of the British Embassy in Tokyo for $686 million in a bid to address funding shortfalls. A source inside the FCDO has told Byline Times that the new Labour government is looking at even more cost-saving measures as the government tries to address the so-called black hole in the UK's economy, meaning the rise in sanction costs is rescinded by those faced with redundancies and more. So, does this mean that we're not going to be pursuing Russian influencers within Londongrad? Labour. Challenges of effective sanctions management. The UK's independent sanction regime has, moreover, faced significant hurdles in enforcement. Admittedly, the National Crime Agency recently seized £780,000 in sanction funds tied to Russian oligarch Peter Avin under Proceeding of Crimes Act 2002. Sanctions enforcement has proven that resource incentive and complex. Some of the money seized from Avin, the former head of Russia's largest commercial bank, went on the payment of salaries to over 20 members of Avin's household staff. Before this seizure, however, there is very little in the way to show of all the investment in sanctions. As Solicitor O'Kane explained in the podcast recorded before Avin's arrest, there have been hundreds of reported breaches. You would think this would lead to maybe not hundreds of cases, but tens of cases. But so far, hundreds of cases, but tens. But so far, over 2 years since Russia invaded Ukraine, there has yet to be any Office of Financial Sanctions Implementation, OSNI, enforcement action, either civil fine or warning or prohibition or publication in relation to anybody for breaching those measures. Other sanctioned companies, such as Belarusian firm Alutech, have also allegedly bypassed UK sanctions by continuing to import banned products into the country, allegedly undercutting British businesses. And by the way, just on that, obviously it's easy to smuggle things into the UK, and we know it's easy to smuggle things in the UK because we have an open border to allow trade in, because if we actually impose the border checks that the EU wants us to, it's going to bloody kill our economy. Well, maybe it's a big exaggeration. It's going to cost everything. All food prices and everything will go up as a result. which, by the way, nobody wants to deal with. Labour MP Diane Sullivan MacDonald raised concerns in Parliament that last May that Alutech was evading sanctions by shipping goods through Russia. British companies, particularly Arnett Systems and JD UK, have claimed significant losses as a result, including 10 million in revenue and layoff. The issue is being referred to HM Revenue and Customs, but investigations are ongoing. So, for those in the comments asking, oh, we should just get rid of the whole thing altogether, we don't need it, we shouldn't be paying for it. Well, sanctions. So what are they good for those who want to know? Against this backdrop, a parliamentary inquiry has been launched into the effectiveness of UK sanctions on Russia, aiming to determine whether these sanctions are truly hindering Russia's ability to finance its military efforts on Ukraine. As of June 2024, 1,707 individuals and 334 entities were under UK sanctions, with about 45% coming from Russia. But despite these numbers, a parliamentary report has raised questions about the effectiveness of the ban, stating that the International Monetary Fund has forecast that Russia's economy will grow faster than most of the world's advanced economies in 2024. There is also the question of whether all this post-Brexit extra legal work on the UK sanctions is, in the end, mirroring that was once done cheaper and more centrally. As British barrister Miller Lesker Casey explained in the above podcast, the courts in the UK have had quite carefully regard to EU judgment in EU sanctions. They regard UK sanctions as being born out of EU sanctions, reflecting them. In defence, an FCDO spokesperson told Byline Times, since Putin's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, our sanctions system has, alongside the EU and other partners, delivered the most severe packages of sanctions ever imposed on the major economy. But, as Dame McGowl had told Parliament, we can have the toughest regime on paper, but if Russia and Belarus are finding ways around it in practice and costing UK businesses, we have not done the right thing. This is a very interesting piece. Yeah. So basically the point of it is, guys, if we hadn't left the EU, sanctions probably would have cost less, and the sanctions would not have had to be a shared burden. So here's the thing, right? We would not have to pay. The burden would not have been as much, and it would have been a collective thing with us and our cooperation with the EU. But we're not part of the EU anymore, are we? So now that's not to say that people will argue, but we do have cooperation with the EU. Yes, we still have cooperations on some with things with the EU. Of course we do. In links, yeah, with, and you hear most of the time that most of our sanctions are kind of coinciding more with America than with the EU, and in difference of sanctions. But still, like, some of you might think, oh, £8 million isn't a lot of money. It's still taxpayer money. It's still our money that, again, was this worth the price of sovereignty? Have our lives improved since Brexit? And you guys don't like that Brexit can keep getting brought up. Well, the fact is that this conversation will never go away, no matter how many times you hide behind your keyboards and type in about how great Brexit is. You still can't provide anything positive to it. You're gonna keep blaming the finger blame game and blame someone else for these problems. No, the long-term goal is we are going to get back into the European Union, whether it is 30 years, 50 years at some point. We will get back in. It's just a matter of when, not if. But the fact that it says that even there only one Russian so far sanctioned is really bad. You know, our strength is nowhere near the same as it used to be since we've left Europe. That is for sure. But a very good piece by Iain Overton, if I'm honest here, from Byline Times. But for those who have common sense, what do you guys think of it? What do you guys make of this story? Are you surprised that Brexit has even added more costs that you knew about, or some of you guys knew about this already but weren't aware? Let me know your thoughts about this piece and more down in the comment section below. If you found this video interesting, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for just 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.